Welcome. This is Akim Magneto, and this is the year 2021. So, today I'm going to be showing you how you can become a full stack developer in this year 2021. Actually, season's greetings to every one of you who have missed me, who have messaged me, who have called me to check up on me. Say a big thank you. Now, actually, I'm making a promise right now to make sure I drop videos on this channel almost every week. Okay, so you can tune up, subscribe, you can share, like this video if you're okay with it. Okay, and also click on the notification bell so that whenever I drop any video, you can receive it. Now, today, what do I have for you today? Now, today's course is going to be like the result of a research I made 6 months ago, and the research was is based on factors to know how you can become a self-taught full stack developer. Okay, so I'm not against all the tutorials you must have watched before, but I can say to you this tutorial is highly unique. Why is it unique? Because I made one-on-one contact, okay, with people like with professors, with high tech engineers that works for big companies and small companies. I interact with some self-taught engineers as well, so as to know their views, their frustrations, their factors, and everything. So this is just like a result, okay, of the survey, or let me say, the research I made in the world of web development. Okay, now, and I've been on this research, I think, for the past 6 months. So it should, let's say, I started around July. Okay, so we are in January. So let's say I spent like 5 months and some days. Okay, so without wasting much of our time, now I actually gave you a sneak view of the technologies which I lay hands on. Okay, now you might think your preferred options is not found in this tutorial, but I would advise you for you to watch from beginning to the end. Okay, so at any point where you have questions, okay, kindly drop your comments. I'm promising you I'm going to reply immediately. Okay, so for this 2021, actually I'm free. I'm here to release more videos to you and also to be your go-to guide. So without wasting much of our time, let's dive in. Now, as I've said earlier on, this tutorial is a very different one from the ones you must have watched on YouTube. Why is it different? Because I took my time to go through to have surveys, have one-on-one discussions with professionals on the line of web development, and also with my own journey, how I became a self-taught programmer, even with all my beliefs and ideologies that programming is very hard and so on and so forth. And also, this it's also a guide which has been practiced with 4 to 6 of my students. That is, so during the course of my journey in web development, I've been able to tutor 4 to 6 students in which they are actually doing very well, and also the factors which are applied to each of the students are also put into consideration in this video. The first factor being location. Now, for someone who is in USA, now we all know that USA is part of the most advanced countries we have now, and countries like Sudan, or let me say some countries in Africa here, are less privileged and in terms of social amenities like electricity. Now, for someone who has a desktop computer in USA, can make use of his or desktop computer without any power outage. But where you find yourself in a less privileged environment, where electricity is not what you see on daily basis, so you just have to buy a laptop computer. So these are the factors which are actually considered in this. The next thing is the ideology and beliefs. Now, there are so many things which has been set into the minds of people, and they made that an ideology. That is, sometimes we are being told that programming is meant for some certain people. Now, programming is a very hard thing to do. And this actually scares people off in terms of learning web development. Now, the next thing is the body type. Now, this might look funny to you, but it's also a cogent reason, or let me say a cogent factor. Now, the rate of metabolism in the body differs from each other based on the body sizes. The next factor is frustration and anger level. Now, why do I write this? We all know in web development, we have we have a state where you read a dead end, whereby you come upon where you come across bugs, and bugs are about to happen, and the idea of you solving the problem is called debugging. Okay, so There are sometimes for learners who actually laid hands on wrong materials, they ended up getting frustrated and their anger level rises. Now, I think the last factor here is the mathematical skills. Now, this can be actually classified under the ideology. Why? Because they have it's let me say some people do normally say if you are not good in mathematics or you don't have a degree in mathematics, you can learn web programming, which is a big lie. Okay, so we considered the mathematical skills of a beginner, intermediate, and also professional in this guide that I'm about to do to you. Now, without wasting much of our time, let's dive into what we need to learn for web development. Thank you. Okay, now the first thing which you need to learn right here is HTML. Now, what is HTML? HTML is called Hypertext Markup Language, and it serves as the bedrock for all web-related technologies. That is, it is the basics for all websites, billions of websites you've seen on the internet. Okay, so that is the basic language a web browser understands is called hypertext markup language, or let me say it's called a markup language. Okay, so the technology behind all websites, okay, that you can see on internet, even if it's an app, a web app, a mobile app. Now, HTML serves as the bedrock for all web-related technology. So, for as a beginner, intermediate, professional, or any level you might be, now the first thing you need to learn to be a self-taught full stack web developer is for you to know HTML. And in this guide, I've classified all HTML tags which you need to know under 10 categories. Yeah, so let's go. Now, the first one which you need to learn here is the basic HTML codes. Now, from the word basic, that is the fundamentals, okay? The basic things which you need to know. Now, the first thing you see when you get to a website is the text, okay? And also you see some, as you will see the text in sizes, either big text, small text, on, and we have sizes for all these things. So now we are going to learn all the H1 to H6. We have the P tags, we have the BR tags, we have the HR tags, and many more. Okay. Now the second thing which you need to learn is the formatting HTML codes. Okay. Now this a little bit different from the basic HTML codes. Okay. Now you see the ABBR tags, you see the address tags, the B tags, block code, center, site, and so on and so forth. So everything you need to learn on that formatting HTML codes are under this. Now the third thing which you need to learn is the forms and input. I'm very sure you watching this video, you have a Gmail account. At any time you want to log into your Gmail account, there's always boxes where you have to enter your login username and password. So those boxes are actually found under the concept of these forms and input. Okay. Now the next thing we need to learn is the HTML frames. Okay. Now this actually, now I'm not sure, I'm quite sure you know about frames. Now from the word frames, you can see the image which they use in depicting frames here. Okay, it's just when you're trying to insert something. Okay, it looks like tables, but it's not tables. Okay, now iframes are still in usage. Okay, as it is. Now the next thing you need to learn is the HTML image tags. Now no website you enter today that you won't see image. Even if you go to google.com, you are going to see Google logo, okay, at the front of the website. So this HTML tag is going to teach you how you can insert image, insert map, areas, canvas, vid caption. We have a lot of tags here, okay, that you need to learn on that HTML image tag. So I want you to take your time, go through each one of them. Now, the sixth one is the audio and video. Now, a lot of the content which are found on the internet today are actually multimedia. So now, and what are they? You have text, you have audio, we have video, we have images, and so on and so forth. So now, this is trying to complete the list of things you see on the website. So the next you're going to learn is the audio and the video codes. Okay. Now, the seventh one which you need to learn under HTML is HTML list and links. Now, first, for some of you who already know how to use Microsoft Word, now you will see whenever you're trying to make a list on your website, or sorry, on your document, okay, you click on the so you click on the bullet and the numberings where you can give either number one, number two, number three, or you can use the alphabet. And also, there's something called hyperlink. An hyperlink is just what you click and takes you to another part of the page or outside the page you actually visiting. Okay, so the next which you need to understand is HTML tables. Okay, now you should know in your word processing software like MS Word, you can actually create tables. Now we have tags that can replicate this you do on MS Word on your website. Okay, Now, the ninth thing is the style and the semantics. Now, these are actually things we use in the header, and some are also actually adopted during the page build up of the website. Now, the last but not the least here, it's the meta info. Now, these are all the things you see on the internet. Like if you visit a website, you're going to see a head, meta, and the base. Okay, now you're going to see all these things on the as you are going to see all these things on every web page that you go to. Now, the right number of days for you to learn HTML. Okay. Now, for beginners, considering all levels, either intermediate, beginner, even sometimes some do finish HTML within 2 hours or something, but would advise considering all locations, either less privileged or more privileged. We actually put all these things into consideration. Okay, so for this, let's say 10 days. Now, make sure it is 45 minutes to an hour daily. Don't overwork yourself, and make sure you take breaks in between the 45 minutes to 1 hour. By so doing this, you are okay in HTML. Now, where are we to learn all these things? Now, the best way to learn, this has been my secret towards learning any new programming language out there. What I do is that I try to look for the official site of the website, or let me sorry, I try to look for the official site of the programming language. Now I download the amount. It's just like you buy a phone or you buy a machine in your house. Now the manual is like a guide that puts you through on how to operate, on how to troubleshoot if there's any problem or whatsoever. Now, the best place for you to learn things for free, okay, the best place for you to learn things for free right here, it's W3 Schools, which is one of the best I've seen right there, and it is known as the world's largest web developer site. Okay, you can virtually learn anything you want to learn. Okay, you can see I've opened up this. You can see w3schools.com. You can learn virtually every languages you want to learn from here. So without wasting much of your time, you can go into the site and start learning now. Now, the best practice. Now, there are sometimes the mistakes that we normally do is for us to lay our hands on high-tech website trying to replicate the example, trying to replicate w3schools.com. Now, all these functions that you can see on this site are quite too enormous for you to do. And mind you, the site is not even developed in, the site is developed in .asp, that is ASP.NET. Okay, so you have to be very careful about the kind of site. Now, try your hands on a simpler project, like trying to replicate simpler website. Okay, check them through the page. Now, you can actually go on internet, check through websites and see the simpler ones so that you can try to replicate them, or let me say try to identify all elements that you can find on the website. Now let's go. Common beginner mistakes to avoid. There are sometimes we will all try to impress people so as just to show to them that we know how to code. Now, by so doing, we ended up reading codes, trying to like store codes, to our brain, and by so doing, you don't tend to understand. Now, the best thing you have to do here is to ensure you develop your eyes for code reading. That is, develop your eyesight in such a way that whenever your eye sees a code, it can read and interpret and understand how the code interacts, either with the server base or something. So, and the next thing is to avoid taking every project. Don't take up any every project for now. Okay, just go slow and steady wins the race. Now, also, this has been the problem of every self-taught developer. Okay, you read too much. Don't read too much. Okay, on this guide which I've given to you, just start with this. Go to W3 Schools and start with HTML, and you are okay. Now, by so doing, there are sometimes you might go to your social media page, either on Facebook or Instagram. You might be distracted with an ad that shows you can learn HTML within 45 minutes, and by so doing, you are taking off from where you have started from. And by adding 3, 4, 5 manuals together, it can actually convince you and make you get frustrated. Okay, now I need to say this. Actually, working with HTML alone might not seem enticing. Why? Because you're actually learning just the basics. Okay. Now, the thing that's going to add flesh to it, we're going to discuss that very, very soon. Okay. Now, what you need to do right here, Healthy tips. Now, I'm going to say this once and it applies to all other programming languages. Now, the first thing you need to do now, this is where we consider the type of body fat we have, metabolism rate, and so on and so forth. Now, you need to choose a good eating habit. If you want to learn in the morning, make sure you eat lightly. Okay, that is, don't eat too much for your body not to have so that for your body not to slow down. Okay. Now, the second thing, don't overwork. Now, that was why we gave you 45 to what an hour, and in a couple of 10 days, you are okay. Now, develop a good naming convention and file hierarchy system. There are sometimes some files might be lost on your system. Why? Because of the naming conventions you choose. Now, this has actually been part of the bad norms of self-taught developers. Now they ended up just giving names, random names to files and folders. Now the naming conventions and hierarchies, that is arranging your files properly in folders and folders in their specific locations. Okay. Now the next thing is be consistent in anything you do in this world. In life, you have to be consistent. Okay, if you want to be a good self-taught developer and you want to get jobs, okay, you have to be consistent. It's not something you do today and you end up not doing it tomorrow. Okay. And the next thing, be positive. This has been my goal in life ever since I've started learning web programming and stuff like that. You have to be positive. Okay, you just have to be aiming at something good and not overwork yourself. So thank you. Now on this, I can say good job done on HTML. So by so doing, I'm very sure you're going to be happy with yourself learning HTML. The next thing which you need to learn here is the CSS. Now, the latest is CSS3. Now, it is called CSS is cascading style sheet now. As I said earlier on, that working with HTML might not look enticing. Why? Because the stuff that put flesh on HTML has not been learned yet. Now, for you to be enticed with what you've learned with HTML, this is CSS. And the latest of CSS is CSS3. Okay, so now this CSS is the language we use to style an HTML document. Now, just as what I've said earlier, that this is what you're going to put flesh on the webs or on the HTML codes you've linked. And CSS describe how HTML elements should display. Now, checking this site, now you can see some elements to the right, you can see some element to the left, and you can see some suspended over here. You can see a button, right? You can see some text here. Now, it is the work of CSS. Now, all the things which you need to learn in CSS are just categorically all these: centering elements, background, positioning, borders, margins and paddings, text formatting, and lot of stuff we are going to learn from this. Now, this is where people get it mostly twisted. Why? Because they ended up mixing CSS with other frameworks. Now, this is not a time for you to go straight into frameworks. Okay. Now, this is a beginner's guide into becoming a self-taught full stack developer. Okay, so at this stage, I want you to close your ears and close your eyes to all other things that you might have been seeing on YouTube or any other places. Okay, that has to do with mixing CSS with something headless CMS. No, for now, you are not yet there. Okay, start with CSS and proceed. Now, we've broken down the things, the categories, just as we've broken down the one for HTML. We broke down CSS into the three types that we have. Okay, we have one, inline CSS, and from the word inline CSS, it means the CSS property in the body section attached with element is known as inline CSS. That is, the kind of style is specified within an HTML tag using the style attribute. Now, that is, from what I said the other on, the meta section of the page, that is in the header. Now you declare how HTML tag should appear. Okay, but by inserting the CSS code inside the header section where we have the meta info. Okay, now the second thing is internal or embedded CSS. Now the CSS rule set should be written within the HTML file in the X section. Okay, now this is also another type of CSS. And the last but not the least type of CSS is called external CSS. That is, you create another file pointing to the HTML file you've earlier written. Okay, now why are we to learn CSS? Watch this. Now, on every site you enter, I'm using Mozilla Firefox here. Now, I'm on W3 Schools over here. Now, let's click on View and let's click on, okay, let's click on View and let's click Paste Style, okay, and choose No Style. You can see This looks archaic. This looks not interesting, as you can see. I'm very sure you can see what I'm seeing right here. You can see HTML might not look like enticing, but the CSS that we have here ensures everything looks colorful, looks fine, looks amazing, and so on and so forth. So that's why you need to learn CSS. Now, where are we to learn CSS? Just as what I said earlier on, you have to go to W3 Schools. Now, it's quite simple. Just click on CSS over here, and you're okay to learn. Okay. Now, even you can learn Node.js, HTML tutorial, anyhow as you want it. Okay. This is the best manner you can lay your hands on ever. Now, best practice on how to learn CSS. Sorry, I mean, now it's the same thing that goes on with this. Don't lay your hands on high-tech websites. Try your hands on the simpler ones, okay? And by the time you go through it, you're going to win the race very soon, okay? Now, for CSS, now actually because of the elements which are present in CSS, now this might take you 12 days. If you are there to the 45 minutes to the daily 45 minutes specification that we give to you, and making sure you rest in between the 45. Let's say you just take 2 minutes just to leave your computer set, go out, stretch yourself, and come back. Now, by overworking yourself, now you are developing your interest rate for it, you are reducing your frustration level, and also by you going out, some of the things that you might actually be thinking of in your brain is sticks. Okay, so this is the best practice to learn CSS as well. Okay, now once you do this, I can say a good job done. Now let's move on to the next one, which we have here. The third one, which goes with HTML CSS, it's called JavaScript. Okay, MCAScript 6 in data types. Now this is one of the most um, collabed, or let me say collaborated fundamentals, that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, now it is all expected for anyone who has learned HTML, adding JavaScript or adding CSS. Now the next thing which you need to learn or to add to the fundamentals or the basics is JavaScript. Now, and the latest of this is ES6, MCAR Script 6. Okay, so now what you need to do right here, it's not that much. JavaScript is already running in your browser on your computer, which is very true. Okay, now the JavaScript actually helps you to build a real-time environment. Okay, that is fetching your result for you at real time. Okay, that is if any values are changing at the back end, without refreshing the page, it shows the result for you in the front end. Okay, now with this, JavaScript is one of the most popular programming language. Okay, and on this, please don't mix it together. The frameworks we have on JavaScript are quite different from the main JavaScript that we know, and this JavaScript is quite different from Java. Okay, Java is also another programming language, but JavaScript relates to web. Okay, now the three basic things which you need to learn under JavaScript. First, you need to learn the JavaScript basics. That is when you learn all the syntax, all the variables, output generation, data types, operators, events, strings, and numbers. Okay, now you're going to find this very easy, after which you've properly learned the act of using HTML codes and adding CSS codes to all these things. Why? Because learning the syntax, it's just learning how JavaScript has been written. Okay, now the way you write HTML codes is quite different from the way you write CSS codes, and it relates to JavaScript as well. So all these things have their own syntax. Now a syntax is just the confirmation of how some stuffs are written. Okay, like now the way Volvo cars, or let me say Toyota cars, are made. Okay, there's a form factor. Okay, there's a way their engine operates and so on and so forth. Might be quite different from the way Honda cars operates. Okay, so you need to learn the syntax, the variables, output generation. So we have the operators, we have the operations. Okay, we have the operands and so on and so forth. Now the next thing are the conditional statements. Now these are actually made. Okay, this is decision making. Okay, you need to learn all the decision making statements, or let me say all the decision making tags or codes that applies with JavaScript. Okay, the next thing we need to learn is the arrays and the function. Now by moving to this third part, now you've advanced. Okay, you've advanced to a certain level. Now you can interact the three together. Okay, you can interact HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, now for JavaScript, why are we learning JS? Now, first thing, increased interactivity. Now, actually, for your site to look interesting, to look interacting, stuff like that, we need some elements of what JavaScript. Okay, now, real-time knowledge, that is by you fetching result from a back end without your page being refreshed. Now, this is what JavaScript does. Okay. Now, half automation. Why do I say half automation? Actually, writing JavaScript codes might do half of the back end functionalities. Okay. Now, we have some basic frameworks that actually helps to do the back end, like we have Node.js. Okay, as the case may be. But right here, you need to know the basics of JavaScript. Now, for you to dive into any of the frameworks that JavaScript has to offer, will be very, very easy for you. Okay. Now, the next thing, it makes HTML and CSS interesting. Why? Because this will give you life, or let me say, it's part of the things that gives life to your knowledge in HTML and CSS. Okay. Now, gives you options as to where else to dive into. Just as I've said earlier on, we have lots of packages that JavaScript has to offer. We have Vue.js, we have React.js, we have Vanilla. Oh, sorry, we have Node.js, we have Commerce.js, and so on and so forth. Once you know what the basics of JavaScript, it's very easy for you to handle any of these frameworks. Now, as for this as well, I'm still going to recommend um W3 schools for you. Okay, this is where you can get everything you need to learn. Now, there is which I want to show you. There is a real time um editor here on the page. So that is if you want to try things out. Okay, there's a place where they will give you to write codes and also to run the codes, and you're going to get your real time answers here. Okay, like now, like this is one of the JavaScript functions which I told you about. Okay, now once you click this without a page or reloading, you're going to see your result with this. So I just entered some PHP codes right here, and it returned all this to me. Okay, so, and if you've written an error, it's going to point out to you. Now, it's been done in a way that it's interactive for you to, for you to interact with. Okay, now also the next which I would like to tell you on this is that JavaScript might actually take longer period than HTML or CSS. Why? Because there are some of the things which are actually volatile, which you need to learn and be at peace with. Okay, so that you end up getting frustrated. Okay, now with advice based on experience and functions, result, research, and everything, it's quite advisable for you to spend 15 days on this and still working on the basics of 45 minutes daily. Okay, now even having this thing done daily, that doesn't mean you shouldn't take your weekend off. Okay, but if you're someone who is actually in between jobs, or you're trying to switch your role, maybe you're a doctor or a lawyer, you're trying to do this and you want to use your spare time. Okay, ensure after coming back from work you must have rested a little bit before you know or start learning programming languages. Okay, now ensure you take a rest. Even during the period you can read the book, it's gonna be very okay if you do all these things. Now, if you have done all these things, I can say a good job done. So we'll go to the next programming language which you need to. Now, sometimes after which people have learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they are actually wrapped in the framework or debacle. Now, why do I say framework debacle? Now, this is where the popularity of new frameworks or old frameworks ended up choking you up to an extent that you tend to lose all the basic knowledge you've acquired. Now, actually, learning framework is going to make you more consistent and also make your work very fast. But you are not to be rushed into frameworks. Okay. Now you are to know the basics because it is out of those basics the frameworks were coined out. Okay. So the best advisable thing, and one of the factors that we see that frustrates and raise anger level up is someone who doesn't know anything about HTML, CSS, trying to go into another framework that is used in designing, like let's say React.js. Now, for someone who wants to know React.js, you need to know the basics of JavaScript. And adding JavaScript, you need to know the basics of HTML and CSS. Now, for me, the best way and one of the reasons which we have seen that affects self-taught um, programmers, okay, it's them being wrapped in the framework or debacle. But what we need to do right here, you need not to worry. Okay, don't worry. We've got all sorted out for you. So all we will just advise you to do is just for you to follow our steps, and you're going to get the result very soon. Now let's move. Now, why do we need to learn frameworks? Okay, now from PacTPub, now you are learning framework to become relevant quickly. Why? Because some top industries, okay, actually they require you knowing the basics of all these programming languages. Okay, but it's gonna like framework is just like a specified, it is a feed specified solution package. Example, now there's a framework that's actually used to design e-commerce stores, okay, and there's one that's actually used to to design ordinary blocks, okay. Now these are their specific solution to like what you need to design an app. Just take for an example, okay, what you need to design an app is found in this program, in this framework, but the basis of this framework is found on this HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so that is how framework works. In frameworks. Now, the first one which I would like to advise you to lay your hands on is called Bootstrap. Okay, now it's one of the most popular HTML, CSS, and JavaScript library in the world. Now, it's one of the most stable framework that you can actually. We have lots, we have thousands, we have boilerplates, we have Bootstrap, we have Less, we have lots and lots of what of framework. But the first I would like you to lay your hands on is called Bootstrap. Now, Bootstrap 3 is the most stable version of Bootstrap, and it's still supported by the team for critical bug fixes and document changes. Now, for you to download documentation for Bootstrap, you can go straight to getbootstrap.com, and you're going to get everything you need to know about Bootstrap. But hold on, wait. Okay, now we have latest version for Bootstrap. Now we have Bootstrap 4, but I would advise you to start from Bootstrap 3. Okay, why? Because the reason why you need to start from Bootstrap 3 is that all browsers, we have we have old browsers, we have new browsers like Netscape. Now, some of the codes from, or let me say, some of the tags from Bootstrap 4 are not yet supported by old browsers. Okay, so but you having the basics of Bootstrap 3, that is, you can write codes that's going to be seen by all browsers. Okay, now you can also have the idea of learning Bootstrap 4 as well, but not as versatile or as okay as what Bootstrap 3. So for starters, start with Bootstrap 3. Now I have a video course which I'm going to attach down to this tutorial where you're going to download the video. Now this is just like, let me say, you can just watch this Bootstrap video for, let me say, 4 hours, okay, and you are going to get all the full gist about Bootstrap 3, and you can now use that to learn the documentation of Bootstrap 4. Now you can merge the changes and advance yourself in this framework usage. Now, for us to prove our points concerning Bootstrap, now if you if you add this to Google and try to make a search that best web HTML framework 2020, okay, now you're going to see Bootstrap tops everything you can talk of. Now we have Foundation, we have UI Kit, we have Semantics UI, we have Bulma, we have Tailwind, Picnic CSS, Paper CSS. We have lots, okay, of frameworks that you can learn, but Bootstrap tops the list. Now the next thing I'm going to say to you that don't worry, there's a link in the description below where you can download all Bootstrap 3 tutorials with sample exercises. So watch it, a video tutorial, okay. Now, and if you need more, as I've told you earlier on, you can go straight to W3 Schools and click on Bootstrap here, and it's going to be okay. Now, the next one which I'm going to tell you to learn under framework is React. I'm very sure some JavaScript coders will be very happy with this. Or let me say, for you beginners who have had Tales by Moonlight of React, I'm very sure you're going to be happy with this. Now, I couldn't neglect this point. Why? Because React is one of the most popular, okay, frameworks, and it's just like is a JavaScript library to building user interface. Actually, it's for front end, okay. Now, React is used to build single page applications, and it allows us to create reusable UI components. Now, what does UI mean? UI means user interface. That is, trying to design something nice, trying to design the layout of the websites, okay, or apps or something, okay, like Amazon. Okay, there's a way Amazon conforms to their own shape and sizes. Now, if you go to Facebook, there's a way it conforms to shape and sizes. Now, React can also be adopted, okay, in designing nice user interfaces and so on and so forth. So now, the thought which I would like you to learn under this framework, actually, this is not actually a framework, it's a preprocessor. Now, why do I say you should learn SAS? Now, SAS, I made mention of something under Bootstrap 3 and Bootstrap 4. I said some of the codes are not supported by old browsers. Now, SAS is going to help you to make your CSS codes to work on all browsers. So you can't neglect all this point. Now, actually, is the thing I can give you 10 to 20 frameworks to learn, but no, you don't need to. You don't need to read too much or know too much at this stage. Know the basics and start working on project. Okay. Now, for SAS, it's a CSS preprocessor and it reduces repetition of CSS codes and it saves time. So at this stage, actually after learning the basics of any programming language, the next thing you need to start working on is your coding skills and time. Okay. Now, because as you are learning, you must also put time into consideration. Okay. Now, frameworks are going to help you to cut down time, okay, and help you save some hours. Now, once you've done all this, I can say you are welcome on board. Now you are a front end developer. With all this, you need nothing other else. And mind you, I'm not saying there is no other programming language out there that you can use to replace either Bootstrap, React, or SAS. But these are the best we have ever seen. And this doesn't frustrate you out. Okay, it gives you higher leverage. So now, what this does is that once you know all these basics, to it makes diving into other programming language, or let me say other frameworks or other something, it makes them very simple for you to learn. Why? Because you must have actually developed your eyesight to read codes and understand and interact with the codes. Now, by so doing, to interact or to jump into any other programming language would be very, very easy. So now, right here, I can call you a front end developer and you are half stack developer. And mind you, this tutorial says becoming a self taught full stack developer. Thank you. So, next, we are going to go into is the steps you need to do after you are front end developer. Thank you. Let's have a recap of the duration of our learning periods. Okay, now HTML is going to take you 10 days, CSS 12 days, JavaScript 15 days, Bootstrap you can take just a day or two. Now learn React for 8 days. Now SAS can be learned in just a day, and testing yourself by merging all these things together can take you 10 days. So let's say 58 days. Okay, for slow learners. Okay, now but for first learners, some people who have much time on the site, they can decide to cut down this. Actually, you can be a good front end web developer, okay, within let me say 30 days. Okay, it depends on how you maximize your time. So the next thing which you need to know is, with all these things you've acquired so far, what can you do at this stage? Now, I would like to tell you this, that you can design nice and engaging interface from scratch. That is, you can create something right from your imagination. You can create something from sketch. You can create anything that you just wish to do. Okay. Now, next, you can work with templates and existing project. Now, let's say there is a company which you want to apply to, and their front end, or let me say the way their website looks in UI is not properly written. Okay. Now you can read all the codes that is found in the existing projects. You can read through, since you've developed your eyes for reading codes. Okay, now you can read through, now check for things that needs improvement and also affect the improvement there. Okay, now you can also create, modify, or redesign any front-end project, which is just what I've just said now, that you can handle any front-end project. You can even go online, modify what you see over there, and create it to your own taste. Now you can work with back end developers. Now that is the other side of being a good person in coding, is this: for you to be able to interact with the other part of the developing aspect. That is, for the people that's going to create the server side programming language, or that's going to create the server side integration. Okay, now you are going to be able to understand each other without problem. Why? Because you understand the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the right framework you've chosen to work with now will be able to be, will be understandable by both of you. Why? Because you'll be speaking in the same realm. Okay. Now, it is now left for the backend developers to know the type of actions to put in for every element you've declared in your front end design. Okay. And last but not the least, you can fill in for any front end developer job. Now, we have lots and lots of jobs flying out there, what we've said. Now, on salary.com, which is a US owned website, okay, now you can see now from this the average, sorry, the average salary for a front-end developer in the United States of America, it's 119,000 US dollars. Okay, so you can see how lucrative this job is, just being a front-end developer, and this hasn't been toggled with other countries. Now you can do your search to know how much front-end developers normally make in your country, but this is just one of the proof of the site which I just told you about now. And as you can see, this graph shows you that you have different competencies. Okay, depends on how good you are. Okay, we have the low factors, we have the higher factors. Okay, that means you can earn as high as 139,000 naira 70 US dollars. Okay, it depends on what, it depends on how good you try to be. So my best advice for you is this: that apart from you working for a company or something, try to improve yourself on a daily basis. Okay, but make sure you are not derailed on the line of tutorials you are watching. Okay, now what next before you become a full stack developer? Okay, now this actually affects most self-taught programmers. Why? Because they neglect these factors. Now, the best thing we need to do for anyone who claims to have a good deep knowledge of something, like you learn karate. Now, I'm very sure there is a belt they give to them. Now, that belt serves as the emblem to show the level of competencies. Okay, so this actually affected lots of self-taught web developers. Either you are half stack, or you are full stack, or you are medium stack, or you are quarter stack. Now, this is actually neglected by lots of programmers and developers. Okay. Now, think about certification. Try to be certified with what you have. Now, there are lots and lots of factors why you need to be certified. First, it boosts your CV. Now, imagine 10 of you submitted application to a certain company, and they could see that you have been certified in the line of work you do. Even at times you might not be as good as they want, but for them seeing that you've passed the certification examination, it gives the company an assurance that this guy can do the job, or this lady can do the job. Now, two, it shows competencies. Now, on your certification examination, let's say like the W3 school certification section. Now, they're going to put a link on your CV, that if the CV is actually sent to them through email, now they can click the link and read about your performances, okay, from them. I have mine as well, and actually that gave me an edge when trying to receive projects from people both home and abroad. Now, the third point is that it gives you an edge in the employment market. Now, apart from you having master's degree, PhD, actually I'm not concerned about that because I don't have a master's degree as well. So for you just finishing grad school, maybe you just finished high school or something, you just finished secondary school right in Nigeria, or you are just through with something which you don't, or let me say you are not even educated, or let me say sorry, you have to be educated, sorry, or let's say you are not even a university graduate or polytechnic graduate or something. Now, best thing you need to do, you have to be certified in this line of work. Okay, I'm not saying it's a must, but it's essential for you to be certified. Okay, and it has other hidden advantages too, which you need to know. Now, the preferred ones, which are actually law, where the places where you can get certified, okay, which are actually being known, that for anyone in the line of web development, they know all these companies. Okay, now to get a front end developer certificate, it costs just 190 US dollars. Okay, now this is going to be an investment on yourself. Okay, and you can also go to Google Digital Garage. Actually, the cost varies because the the course instructors on digital or Google Digital Garage are other companies like Udacity. Their courses might vary, but it's still in the range of 100 US dollars to 200 US dollars. Okay, so this is my preferred one. Now we can go straight to the certification. Now you can see gain new skills. Now you can see if you want to be certified in just HTML alone, $95, CSS alone, $95, JavaScript, $95. Now, but this is the best one which I did, which I was very happy about. Okay, now you can learn these three things now and you can be certified in it. Now that is you can learn these three languages here and you can also get certified, but you just have to pay a sum of 190. I think there are some extra charges, maybe like $1 or something. I'm not sure. I did mine 2 years ago, so I'm not sure of the amount it is right now. So once you've done all these ones, now you are rest assured that your front end developer journey is complete. Okay, so now what you might be thinking right now, it's something which has been buzzing the waves on the internet, which is about Python, TypeScript, JavaScript, and other coding verses. Actually, how my advice to you right here is for you to calm your nerves, okay? Slow and steady wins the race. Now, I would like to say this as a disclaimer notice from me here. There is no best programming language out there. The only thing that makes each programming language popular is the way people talks about it. Okay, now you can say because Python is the most talked about programming language in the world, and you can tell me that there are a lot of thousands of jobs being a data scientist. Now you can only be employed by big companies like Google, and mind you, before you can do all those things, the stress you are going to go through are enormous. So I would advise you start with the basics. Now knowing the basics is going to help you to be able to delve into other programming languages out there. Now don't be enwrapped or don't be wrapped up with the buzz of Python, TypeScript, their popularity. Now at times the popularity of a language might just make you to lose focus on everything that you are talking about. So but don't worry, the next stage we are going to handle right here is just how you can become a full stack developer. Actually, you might expect me to say Python, you might expect me to say JavaScript, you might expect me to say TypeScript, but I'm going to break your heart very soon. So just calm your nerves and hold on. Now, your journey towards becoming a full stack developer start here. Now, the first programming language which I'm going to be introducing to you right here is PHP. Now, I'm very sure some of you might not be okay with this because of the popularity of some other new programming languages out there, like Python, like Node.js and stuff like that. But I would like to tell you this because a programming language is popular doesn't mean it's needed. Okay, actually, any new programming language comes with its own rave, with its own wave, with its own noise and everything. But I would want you to have your hands wrapped and worked on one of the oldest programming language, which was actually meant for web scripting. Okay, so without wasting much of our time, I would like to introduce you to PHP. Now, why? Because it has faster turnaround time and has security and affordability. The next reason why you need to learn is because it's a free language with no licensing fees, so the cost of using it is minimal. Now, the next is a good benefit of using PHP is that it can interact with many different databases, include MySQL. Okay, now this has been one of the things that make PHP to be very very useful. Why? Because it's actually compatible with lots and lots of things. So using PHP, working with PHP, or trying to interact with PHP doesn't involve any complex stages at all. Okay, with system as low as 256 MB of your RAM and you have two gig free space on your hard drive, Now you can work with PHP. Now there is no specialized installation which you need to do, except you want to do the advanced installation where you have to install MySQL through Linux. Okay, but for and this works on almost every servers. Okay, now they said PHP can also run on Windows, Linux, and Unix servers. Okay, so this is one of the most widely used PHP. Oh, sorry, this is one of the most widely used programming language out there. Now, with so many bad ratings from new era developers. Now I call them new era developers. Why? Because Python came with its own popularity, and by so doing, lots and lots of people are making tutorials why you need not to learn PHP. But as the case may be, these new era developers tend not to get jobs because let me say in 100% of all the jobs we have out there, okay, 78% of websites or 70% of the jobs out there, website jobs out there, are actually requested in PHP. Okay. Now, but with all bad ratings, with all bad talks from new era developers and programmers, PHP still remains in top five programming language of all years. Okay. Now, as you can see from this site, which you can actually make your own proof, statistic. Okay. Now, as you can see, now kindly look at this red button where it says Python remains the most popular programming language based on share of tutorial search in Google. Now, one of my friend video, which I'm going to add this link down here, state categorically why you need not to learn Python in 2021. Actually, you can become a data scientist or become a data visualization manager or something, but there is no job for you out there for now. The kind of companies that can employ you are Google and other top companies as well. Okay, but for you to be able to start up small business, for you to be able to work with big companies, and even for you to have the basic understanding of Python, PHP is needed. As you can see, the top five, you can see we have Python, we have Java, we have JavaScript, we have C Sharp, and PHP. And for those who are still confused about this, you can make much more of your research, okay? And try to know how consistent PHP has ever been, considering all these factors according to reliability, security, enhanced features. And as I've said earlier on, I have people, or let me say, I have mentors who actually performs, or let me say, who actually does artificial intelligence with PHP, and also machine learning with PHP as well. I can put links to their channels for you for intermediate and the professional uh, part of the people over there. Okay. Now, this should not be confused with anything. Now, from Akka.io, it said, though PHP is facing tough competition from Python and JavaScript, but the market still needs a large number of PHP developers. Now, I'm going to show you reason why this is so. Okay. Now, why should you learn PHP? Number one, it enables you to have an eye that can read codes, even if it was written in another language. Now, one of the things which I've learned so far, because I switched to Python within 2 weeks. Why? Because I was able to develop my eyes for reading codes in PHP. Now, it makes Python very simple for me to just switch to. Why? Because actually, for me, I was actually moved into Python because of the loud noises being made by new era developers. Okay, so I got in there. I was able to. I found PHP. I found Python reading and writing code in Python very easy. Why? Because PHP knowledge which I've actually acquired with CSS, JavaScript, and HTML makes me very versatile and being able to write projects in in Python. Now I'm going to roll out some of the projects I wrote in Python and some of the websites I designed in Python, just for me to test my competences. Now the second thing why you need to learn PHP is this: it has lots of already solved problems online. Now there is no single line of codes of bugs, or let me say bugs or tips, suggestions that you could type to Google that you won't find an already solved problems. Now, this is one of the reasons why PHP is one of the most used and widely used programming, or let me say server-side scripting language. Why? Because there are tons There are tons and tons of what already solved problems you can find online. Now, that's one of the largest online communities. And sometimes the hosting companies which you want, that is the places where you want to host your website, they find it easy. Their developers find it very easy for them helping you out with bugs that has to do with PHP. Now, for example, WordPress. Now, you can go to namecheap.com and interact with them. And like if you have, let's say there is a problem on your WordPress site, it's easy for them to help diagnose. But if these codes are written in other languages which are not quietly, let me say, that the large popularity of people are not actually into it, but actually it's new and it's one of the most popular. Now it will be very hard for. Now it will not be left with some specified hosting companies that can give you support with Python. Now next one is it's popular and one of the oldest out there. Now you can trust them for solidity, reliability, and security. So many upgrades are being done by open source contributors. Now see, what I would like to expose you to is this. I'm very sure you know, as at the time of this tutorial, PHP 8 is out already. And I can bet it with any Python developer that the features that comes with PHP 8 is quite solid, reliable, and secured compared to what you have in. The only thing Python can actually be used for, data visualization, or you can say you want to become a data scientist and artificial intelligence. But as I'm saying it, I can still say it again. I stand corrected. PHP can also be used for artificial intelligence and also machine learning. Okay. Now, WordPress, one of the most popular CMS platform you can see online, it works and stands with PHP, and we have billions of WordPress jobs lying around there. Examples are simple website, personal blogs, commercial blogs, post surveys, and many other. Now, take for example, we have Drupal, we have Joomla. All these things works with what? PHP. Now, almost all the CMS out there that we have, that is one of the most popular. 86%. One of the surveys which I read actually said 86% of websites runs on PHP engine. So this is quite. So I would suggest you learn PHP first before moving on to any other programming language of your choice. Okay. Now to learn PHP, now spending 30 minutes to 45 minutes daily, you can spend let's say 15 to 20 days. Okay, and please rest and be positive. Okay, now once done, you can now create interactivity. Now what do I mean by interactivity? That is, from the front end, people are interacting with your site and they can get a feedback, okay, from the back end. Okay, so to have a real-time back end instruction, or let me say feedback, that is where JavaScript comes in. So that is why I said you need to know the basics of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, then try to mingle it up with some other frameworks, then try to know PHP. So before we can say we are through with PHP learning, we need to proceed into database. Why? Because database is one of the storage places where you store your data and variables and stuff like that. Okay. Now, choosing database, you have to be very careful about choosing database. Okay, you have to know now from Geeks for Geeks.org. Now, one of the most consistent database, let me say, sorry, structured query language. Okay, one of the programming language which was written on structure query language is MySQL. Okay, now we have tons of them. We have PostgreSQL, we have MongoDB, we have Oracle. But for web, okay, which actually might let me say is the best as regards to web development. Okay, it's MySQL, but it's called MySQL. Okay, good. So MySQL, it's actually written in structured query language. Now, this is a basic language for storing, manipulating, and retrieving data in database. Now, example, take for example Google.com. Now, you type in your query. Now, any input you type in there is called a query. Okay. Now, you sending it, you are making a request. Okay. Now, Google has servers in the cloud or in the water or something where they store all informations, okay, of let me say of websites. Okay. Now these queries you type in there are called keywords actually in SEO. Okay. Now these keywords are actually used to fetch in relation to what you've typed into the query box. So sometimes in database too as well, let's say you want to have a user database, okay, whereby you want to store user information. So MySQL is database program to use to store their data. So once you are good in MySQL, now you can say you need to learn the SQL syntax, or these are all the things you're going to learn in MySQL. Okay, so this is quite simple. Now, spending 30 to 45 minutes daily. Now, the reason why this is actually, I can actually say you are supposed to spend just a day learning this, but mind you, you don't need to rush yourself for this. You have to get each one of them and try to put them into practice. Okay, now the next thing you need to learn is for you not just to switch off from this video. Now, at this point in time, now if you have anything that is not clear to you, or let's say you have an argument you want to prove to me, let's say you want to tell me Python is the best, or you want to prove your point, submit your comment down this video. Okay, you can drop your comment. And for those who are actually feeling me, who are actually okay with what I've been saying so far, let's continue. Thank you. Now, before we switch off from any server-side programming language, we need to learn object-oriented programming. Okay, now this is where you learn the 4 pillars of OOP, which is encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. Okay, these are the major things which you need to learn. Now, this OOP is actually called Advanced PHP. Okay, and the best instructor for this, I'm going to provide them inside the link in the description. Now, you can learn more. Actually, I would have loved to say more about object-oriented programming, but I don't want to waste much of your time in learning this guide. Okay, now once you've done with this, this is just a chart showing you how it's actually been done: encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, and inheritance. But actually we make use of class and object. Okay, now in one of the tutorial which I'm going to drop very soon, I'm going to teach you how you can design um how you can design a WordPress theme from scratch. Okay, now I'm going to make use of some object oriented programming in them. Okay, so just watch out for the next video coming. Now, this is a decision making junction where after which you've learned PHP. Now, I can categorically tell you that by the time you learn how to program with PHP, everything it's gonna be very easy for you. Either you want to switch to Java, you want to switch to Vue.js, you want to switch to Go, you want to switch to Python, or you want to switch to Node.js. Now, to learn Python, PHP is going to help you to read the codes properly. Now, to switch to Java, PHP is going to teach you the runtime environment which you need to interact with Java. And also to learn Vue.js, the idea you have with JavaScript and also HTML and CSS is going to help you in learning of Vue.js. Actually, I'm not that good in Go, but their programming structure is also okay. So, and for Node.js, the same thing goes with Vue.js. Okay, now you can also learn Vuetify and other JavaScript libraries that are out there. Okay, now with PHP, it's going to build your eyes for reading codes and ensure you are very versatile in them. So that's why I drew these charts telling you that this is the stage where you cannot migrate to any of your choice that you want to learn. Now, with this, I can say you are welcome on board. Now you are a front end and back end developer. So you are now a full stack developer. So you can wish yourself all the best things in the world. Now you can go and do a lot of things. So now let's have a recap. Now, to be a front end developer, just from what we said earlier on, it's going to take you nothing less than 58 days for slow learners, 30 to 45 minutes to 1 hour daily. Okay, and you are giving yourself rest interval. Okay, but there's a way you can cut down this. Actually, you might have watched tutorials that might say you can become a full stack developer within 15 days. Well, they have their own method of teaching, but I'm very sure a lot of things are going to be missed out of it. Now, the most practical way, let me say, the most practical result we've gotten so far, it's around 3 months to 4 months. So you just have to prepare your mind that within the next 90 days or 100 days, I'm going to be a full stack developer. And this is the best time to learn, programming. Why? Because we're on lockdown and we all wish ourselves a better tomorrow from this COVID-19 that is actually affecting the whole world. Okay, so now from this, I can say thank you for tuning to my channel. And anywhere you've missed any of the points, you can please rewind back to that spot and to know more. And any spot where you think I didn't say something, please you can kindly drop that in the comment section, and I'm going to be there with you instantly. Okay, for this year, I've promised I'm going to be dropping videos on weekly basis. Thank you. This is Aki Magneto signing out. Peace out.